little bit, but I want to make sure we have time for our class tonight, so I'm going to get started. We have some first timers tonight. We're in the middle of the quarter. Trying to think of, I think we have 3 classes left tonight because 24th is going to be our spring seminar, and then the 31st I'm going to be preaching down in Florida. Different part of Florida, different place. Suffer through. Somebody has to do that hard work. So there's tonight, and I think 2 more Wednesday nights, and then this quarter will come to the end as far as this class is concerned. So, huh? Oh, I don't know if I want to do that or not. This is a
because we're not going to start up like the quarter until May.
Okay.
Or
Well,
June.
I mean, we might could do like a study of Song of Solomon or something. I don't know. But we're talking about how can I build up my marriage, and I'm really encouraged at your interest in that subject. And every once in a while I'll bump into an alliteration, and I'm doing that this quarter. So you'll notice that each of our elements for building up the marriage start with the letter H. And tonight says, how can I build my marriage be hitched? What's a hitch?
Something holds things together.
Something holds things together.
Something you pull something with.
Something you pull something with. All right, so it just depends on your perspective. Either pulling somebody along, or you're tied together with them. Connect. All right.
Looks more like a noose.
Well, somebody knows what this is. What is this?
Hold on.
I thought Dave Steves might know what this is. Huh?
Bowling on a bike.
Okay, yeah, that or a truck. I think the official term is a trucker's hitch. All right, it may not be a good one, but that's what it's called, for what it's worth. The word hitch is defined as to fasten or tether together with a rope. And it came to mean a temporary interruption or problem, right? There's a hitch in this plan. And then it came to be a slang way to refer to marriage. Now marriage, I'm not trying to say is synonymous with being tied down. And it's not meant to be a problem, though it can involve interruption. But to me, the idea of being hitched carries with it the idea of doing life together, of being joined together for life. At least that's the way we're going to be looking at that. Do you remember what happens in Matthew chapter 19 when the Pharisees are coming along, as they're apt to do, and trying to trap Jesus in some way? Matthew 19, when we think about that text, sometimes we think of one of the more difficult passages to teach and preach about in the New Testament. We think about Matthew 19 and verse 9, God's law of marriage, divorce, and remarriage. But do you remember how it starts? What is the Pharisees' attempt to trap Jesus?
Divorce?
Yeah, it is, but how do they kind of broach the subject with him?
Well, Moses commanded it, or he allowed it, or something about Moses.
Yeah, so he's going to get there. Here's how it starts in Matthew chapter 19 and verse 3. There's 2 schools of thought in Jesus' day. There's a very conservative view, and there's a very liberal view about what Deuteronomy 24 verse 1 is talking about, and why you can put away your wife. The Hebrew is uncleanness, and the more liberal idea was that even if she burns the bread, that's uncleanness. She's not cleaning your eyes, you can put her away. And then, of course, the more conservative, and it would seem to be in step with what Moses is saying, is if she is immoral, that's why you would put her away. Anyway, that's the premise. They come up to Jesus and they say, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any reason at all? Now, you have to get way at the very end of what the loosest thinkers would think. But they're coming to Jesus because he's bringing this new teaching. They're thinking, all right, what is Jesus going to say? Because he's got the people's ear. What's he going to say? So verse 4. Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female, and said, for this reason a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall be joined to his wife, and the 2 shall become one flesh. So they are no longer 2, but one flesh. So what does he say next? What God therefore has joined together, let no man separate. Okay, so God's the one that tied that first hitch. He's the one who's saying, I want you to look at your life in marriage in terms of this long-term commitment in which you are tied to your spouse. And that's a good thing. It's a God-given thing. And we'll look at that in just a moment. But what I want to do by way of introduction is to get you to help me. And I want you to think, just generally speaking, so don't make personal application yet to marriage. But I want you to paint for me the picture of how you would describe a good friend. What qualities that you're looking for, what a good friend would look like.
Trust.
Okay? Somebody that you can trust.
Lawyer.
Okay, loyal. So kind of the other side of that, the other side of the coin. Somebody that you know you can count on, that's on your side, even if they don't necessarily say what you need to hear. But, all right, loyalty. What else?
Honest.
Honest. I think that would kind of certainly be synonymous with the trust, but it's important in a friendship.
Someone who's kind.
Kind. Okay. Yeah. Did you ever have a friend, maybe somebody that you wanted to be friends with, and maybe they were, everybody liked them, and they kept you around, but you were kind of like their lapdog, and they were very sarcastic, and you put up with it because you wanted to be seen with them? That's not a healthy friendship, is it? What you want in a genuine friend, a good friend, is somebody who's going to be kind to you. Somebody who you can trust your feelings with. All right, very good. What else?
Good conversation.
All right. Yeah, how long is the friendship going to last if you just sit there and stare at each other all the time? That's not very fulfilling, is it, in a friendship? All right, what else?
Encouragement.
An encourager. All right.
Transparent.
Good. Transparent. Okay. Genuine.
Forgiving.
Okay. Forgiving.
Someone who will listen.
Selfless. Can I say attentive? So whoever said good listener. All right. Just wanted to let you know I was listening. All right. All right. What else? Is that yours, Brayden? Okay. Does that work? I don't want to.
Oh, that works.
Okay. All right. What else? Anything else?
Joyful.
Joyful. Man, that's right. Somebody that doesn't bring things down. A negative Nelly, right? Don't you like to have that person that's always going to find the dark cloud on a sunny day? That's not who I'm looking for in a friend. Good point. All right, what else?
Similar ideas, you think the same?
All right. So is it okay to say compatible?
Sure.
Is that close?
That'll work.
All right, any English makers in the room? All right, what else?
Listener.
Listener. All right, so that'd be Braden's. She didn't hear you.
Oh.
Just kidding. We will make sure we get that in there. We attentively listen, for sure. What else? Anything else?
Sympathetic, maybe?
Sympathetic. Anything else you would add to the list?
Someone you have fun with.
Okay. All right, let's say fun loving, but I mean, if they love fun, they're going to have fun, right? Okay. Okay, somebody who's time invested. Somebody who will make time for you. Very good.
Like-minded in spiritual belief.
All right. So, chief among all facets, you like somebody that you have shared interest with, right? And somebody who's on the same page spiritually makes it easier to be around, or should make it more desirable to be around in some of those other areas. Have fun with them, doing other things. And of course, think about 1 Corinthians 15:33 about the kind of companions you have. If they're evil companions, they're going to corrupt the moral compass that you have. Anything else? It's a good picture. Now, before we say anything more about this, I want you to think about a friendship. Maybe to dig into the past, somebody that you might have been a closer friend to in the past, but you're not as close with them now. What happens? What causes a friendship to flag? What causes that to change? that you're just not as close to them as you were before. I realize it could be that you say, well, some of they developed, or we had lacking some of these things that were on your first list. But is there anything else you would add to that? I mean, some people drift in and out of your life, right? Some people you're close to at some point, and then you're not so much at the other. If you have the ability to look back and analyze that, what are some of the reasons why?
Differences in beliefs.
Okay?
Spiritual incompatibility.
Spiritual incompatibility. Now, here's how that can happen, certainly. Oh, this is even harder. All right. Is that maybe you grow spiritually and you find yourself, maybe you weren't as spiritually strong as you needed to be, but you're growing, and that other person's kind of stayed where they are, and so maybe you begin to see that you're no longer in the same place, right? Or something can happen in somebody's life and they can fall away. Maybe maybe Christ used to be a higher priority in their life, and then he no longer is. And this really, it's a good thing if that causes you to change the relationship and to create some space there. Because of, I think, what Dave was implying that he didn't say with regard to that. All right, what else?
Priority.
Okay. Proximity. Let me deal with each of those. And then somebody say priority in the back. Okay. So proximity, if you're not around somebody all the time, that's going to happen. How many of you grew up somewhere different than Bowling Green? So you think about some of the folks that you were friends with in high school. And you know how you write in each other's yearbooks, we'll be tight forever, I look forward to hanging with you 50 years from now. Are there people you haven't maybe even thought of since high school that you used to be pretty close with? You're just not around each other. And so you lack that element. With priority, how whoever said that, how would that differ from spiritual, is it that different priorities happen in your life that kind of, maybe that friendship happened at a less complicated time and now you have different priorities, there are different things, not even necessarily spiritual, just maybe new priorities. Okay, I think that's fair. Anything else that causes a friendship to begin to flag?
Children.
I was saying seasonal changes, like your age, you had children.
Okay.
Children, they do.
Yeah. And so this phenomenon happens, right? It's not that way. Every place is different, but Kathy and I, you were 21 when Gary was born, right? And I was 23. And a lot of our peers at that time didn't start having children for almost a decade later. And so a lot of our peers were old people, I mean, they were not, at the time we thought that. They're 10 years older than us, right? And people who are our age that we might have been friends with and you start having children, they're not in that stage of life yet. Now, you still can be good friends, but that can be something that impacts on the closeness of that friendship. It's an inevitability. It's like proximity. It's not a bad thing. It's not a value judgment. It just happens, right? Anything else you want to add to that? What causes a friendship to kind of grow more distant or to become less close?
A misunderstanding.
Okay. Sadly, too often that can happen. That comes between people sometimes.
Lack of communication.
Okay, and that might even be what leads to the misunderstanding. All right? Lack of communication, good communication. Don't know how to communicate. I had on my list here criticism. You ever have somebody that was used to be a good friend, but it seemed like the more you're around them, the more critical they came to be. And if you have a precious commodity of time, and as you're investing in relationships, if somebody's always kind of telling you you're not good enough or that you need to improve in all these different areas, now don't be thin-skinned. Maybe there are some areas that need to improve, but there can also be a critical spirit. And that's kind of the opposite of the positivity that we were talking about a while ago. Somebody can be so negative and critical that you just really want some distance, right? A betrayal. If somebody betrays you, that's going to cause you to put some distance. Thoughtlessness, moodiness, neglect, no communication. Somebody said that. Dishonesty. So friendships are usually heading in one of two directions. It's kind of hard for a friendship to remain in a stagnant position. So obviously, given the class that we're in, this is not a how to win friends and influence people kind of a class. It's about our relationship with our spouse. If we're to let the Bible paint the picture, I don't know how much time I have for this, but I don't want to neglect it. But I want us to include some of the qualities that the Bible says that we need to have in a friendship. So if you can turn somewhat quickly, let's look at Proverbs 17:17. So we're going to kind of be in those poetic books for a few passages, Proverbs or Psalms. But I want you to listen to how the Bible paints the picture of friendship. Proverbs 17:17. Somebody have that, read it for us, please.
A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity.
A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for adversity. What's the quality there?
Love.
What did I hear? Certainly love is explicitly mentioned. A friend loves at all time, and a brother is born for adversity. What does that sound like? You're in adversity, and a friend is there when you're in adversity.
They're dependable.
Dependable, loyal, right? So God says, here's how you can be the kind of friend that God approves of. Be this way. All right, Psalm 15 and verse 3. Psalm 15 and verse 3.
He does not backbite with his tongue, nor does evil to his neighbor, nor does he take up a reproach against his friend.
All right, does not slander with his tongue, doesn't do evil to his neighbor, doesn't take up a reproach against his friend. What quality are we looking for there? What quality of friendship is highlighted, accentuated in that passage? This is who can dwell in God's holy hill. What would you call this? What does it mean to take up a reproach against your friend?
Don't talk bad about it.
Did you hear what Stephen? I know he's my friend, but So, do you want a friend like that? So the Bible is telling us what kind. You want to dwell in God's presence? Don't be that guy. Well, let that sink in, because that's convicting. Because that's something that good people struggle with all the time. I'm concerned about so and so. As long as I'm concerned, it's okay for me to talk about them. Not because if they were right here, right next to me, I probably wouldn't say it. And I certainly wouldn't say it the way I'm saying it with some kind of insinuation. Friendship. Now, Proverbs 27 and verse 6. Proverbs 27 and verse 6.
Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful.
Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy. What quality? What's Scripture calling for us to be there as a friend? Honest.
Insincerity.
Huh?
Insincerity.
Yeah, to avoid insincerity, to be honest. Because faithful are the wounds of a friend. You ever needed somebody to set you straight and tell you something you really didn't need to hear, but they loved you enough that they said it to you? Now be careful. Don't be the kind of person who discounts the value of that. Realize we all need that. If we didn't all need that, God wouldn't put that in Scripture for us to see. You got a friend, and he or she loves you enough to wound you. It probably hurts them really bad to do that. You know the person. There's some people that love to do it, but that's the kind of a rare person. Now, do you like confrontation? I mean, some people do, but most of us don't. So if somebody can bring that to you and care enough about you to say it, that's a friend you want to hang on to. All right, Proverbs 27 and verse 9. Two verses later.
Oil and perfume make the heart glad, so a man's counsel is sweet to his friend.
Okay, what's our quality there?
Honesty.
Honesty. Say again?
Good advice.
All right, good advice. That communication y'all were talking about a while ago. All right, very good. All right, verse 10.
Do not forsake your own friend or your father's friend, nor go to your brother's house in the day of your calamity. For better is a neighbor nearby than a brother far away.
Okay? All right? What's the quality there? I think there's several. Loyalty, service, sacrifice. How about this one? I'll quote this one for you. John 15:13. Greater love has no man than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends. What's a good quality of a friend? Love, sacrifice. All right. So you understand that we're looking at this through the lens of marriage. And how do we get here to where we can look at our spouse and say, this is the kind of friendship that I'm building with my mate? Because I don't want to be here. A lot of times the marriage suffering or struggling is because we're not working on the friendship that should undergird this relationship. Martin Luther said there's no more lovely, friendly, and charming relationship, communion, or company than a good marriage. And of all the friendships that you have, your spouse should be your closest and your best friend. If you wanted to sign a debate with me on that, I'd be happy to do that. I can't see how there should be anybody on this earth that you consider a closer friend than your mate. I want you to walk back to the garden with me for just a minute. I want you to listen as the first groom reacts to the first bride. If you want to turn back to Genesis chapter 2, verse 22 through 25, this is where it all began. It literally, where human interaction all began, was when God brought a woman to the man, performed the first wedding ceremony, gave the first bride away, and we have the first human relationship on earth. All right, it starts in Genesis 2:22. The Lord fashioned into a woman the rib which he had taken from a man and brought her to the man. The man said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman because she was taken from out of the man. For this reason a man shall leave his father and his mother and shall be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were not ashamed. So what are the elements of friendship that Moses and Adam recognized per this text? The elements of friendship. Do you see any?
Together. They were together.
Okay. They were together. What verse?
20. I got 4.
Okay.
24.
All right. 24. They were together. What else? Let's start at the beginning. How did this relationship form?
From God.
God. Literally, how did it happen? God made her from him and brought her to him. So I would say that the element of friendship that you need, as we see from this first example, is it needs divine endorsement, doesn't it? Somebody that the Lord would bring to you, not the devil. Right? So verse 22, it needs divine endorsement. How about verse 23? What do you see there? Elements of friendship, verse 23. What does he say?
They came from one flesh.
Okay.
They end up as one flesh.
They came from one flesh. They end up as one flesh. They're part of each other. Isn't that a beautiful picture of this closeness? It needs a strong sense of loyalty and protection. What does he say? This is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. You can see that sense of, I'm hers and she's mine. Not this, insecure overprotection that doesn't allow individuals to be individuals. If that's how you're seeing this, you're reading it with some baggage. It's not in the text. There should be this sense of loyalty and protection that says, I'm going to watch out for you and you're going to watch out for me because you're bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. Number 3, it needs companionship and closeness. This is what you've already said. Verse 23, it says that she was taken out of man. Number 4, it needs prioritizing. What does he say about that relationship in verse 24? That points to priority. Therefore, or wherefore what?
Leaving father and mother.
A man shall leave his father and his mother. All right. So I'm putting my spouse above other relationships on this earth. Number 5, it needs intimacy. You've already mentioned that. They shall become one flesh. It needs comfort, acceptance, and openness. Verse 25. How does he leave us there? It's okay, it's in the Bible. What does it say?
Naked and unashamed.
They were both naked and unashamed. All right. So God's saying here, you want a picture of what this relationship can be. You've got all the elements, at least in seed, for this to occur right here. And God is saying, that's what I want for you. When I created this blessing. Now, it's interesting, isn't it? Of all the things that we see in the Bible, marriage precedes sin. And so God brings this as a blessing in paradise for humanity to enjoy. And so certainly we understand there's the part that we play to cultivate that, to make that stronger and better and closer. I hope that every married couple can say that they consider each other their best friends. But I think if some were honest, they'd say that their spouse is not currently their best friend. Now, I know who does want you to be extremely close with your mate, and I know who does not want you to be extremely close with your mate. And so we got to choose who it is that we want to let influence our relationship. So, 3 things that can help us with being hitched to one another. The first element of this friendship is we need to converse. Fun fact, if you didn't know this, from the French word converse means to live among, it means to be familiar with, it means to keep company with. So, how would you describe satisfactory or fulfilling conversation with your friends? Somebody said something a while ago. Lively conversation, right? What does that mean? What is lively conversation?
I say good conversation. You wrote up lively.
No, what's good conversation mean?
Lively.
Conversation. That's a good answer. Yeah, interesting.
You know, there's give and take, listening, all that.
All right, give and take. That's good. Anybody else want to help her out? What else?
Active, engaging.
Active, engaging. We know how to converse, right? I mean, people, and that's one of the things we talk about, and we don't want to make it a hobby horse, but one of the things that can be a liability with our smart technology is that we can lose some of the finer points of conversation. And there are some elements of conversation that require you to put away whatever. I mean, not necessarily just a phone. It could be the newspaper back in the day. It could be the television. It could be a lot of different things. So I would say that you would describe conversation with your friends that you value as lively, informative, demanding active listening. Somebody said that. Uncritical, enjoyable, honest even if painful, fulfilling. Right? If it's not fulfilling, and that happens again and again and again and again, you're probably not going to be drawn to the conversation with that person. So if your spouse is your best friend, shouldn't your conversations be described that way? And I'm not trying to build discontent. I think it's probably a true statement that everybody's communication and conversation needs to improve. We take whoever it is in this room that we hold on the highest pedestal, they would tell you we're still working on our conversation skills. It's something that's an ongoing discipline that's got to occur. So, how can we improve the quality of our conversation together? Well, at the heart of it is what Voltaire said, the road to the heart is the ear. We have got to learn to listen. Jesus was a master conversationalist, but he wasn't just teaching. When you think about Jesus, you think about the great wisdom that he imparted, but think about how often he was engaged in listening and in conversation. He asked questions, and that's not the only way to have conversation, but he asked questions of lepers, of Roman officials, of blind men, of rabbis, of prostitutes, of fishermen, of politicians, of mothers, of religious zealots, and invalids and lawyers. Do you see the diversity of the people that Jesus was able to engage in conversation? So, how do you get there? Learn to listen. All right? Let's talk about what good listeners look like, or sound like, or are like. Number one, good listeners listen with their ears. Communication experts say that even when our mouths are closed, we're saying,
Eyes.
what did I say?
Ears.
Oh, well, I'm glad you're listening. I just tested you there. Good listeners listen with their eyes. All right. My point's the same. Communication experts say that when our eyes, even when our mouths are closed, we're saying a lot, right? Sometimes when our mouths are open, we're saying not much. When people speak to you, they're receiving a lot of messages about how interested you are in the conversation. See, the intensity of your interest can be measured by the way your body talks. Staring away, staring down, glancing at other people or the television, that tells the speaker that you're not interested. Now, I don't think I've done this in this environment. When I taught preaching his work, I talked to the guys at school who were going to train to be preachers about not being that guy. I don't know if you've ever seen the preacher who was ever this way, who would be after services, back when we used to shake hands. You remember that? Can I shake your hand? Are you going to be okay with that? Okay. And so, you ever see the preacher who was like, you ever see that? Don't be, maybe it's not just preachers. I mean, it could be other folks too. But what does that tell you? Yeah, you're not important to me. I'm looking at who else next I can engage or talk to, right? And so I said a lot to him by something that could have been a positive thing, an interaction that I missed out on because I was looking beyond that person. Dr. Julian Fast said, if you hold another person's eyes for longer than, say, 2 seconds, it is a clear sign that you're interested. Now, so when I'm up preaching on Sunday morning, I know that there's some of you who are intently taking notes. And that's why I see the top of your head. I mean, I'm not joking around. I can tell that you are. But there are in every group, there's a lot in this group. I appreciate that. But in every group, there's those yes faces. So if you've ever had to stand before anybody for any length of time, and you look out and you have that person, you know who the yes face is, right? So if you ever feel like I'm preaching a lot at you, maybe because you have a yes face. Because people it's a subconscious thing. We're drawn. If I look out and somebody's looking, and I'm going, hey, they're awake. And they see that actually their faces changing expressions kind of mirrors what I'm saying. They may be just really good at that and maybe thinking about something else, but I'm drawn, and you think about how easy that is to incorporate that discipline. Now think about that with your spouse. How does it feel when you're talking and your spouse shows that kind of interest in what you're saying? I'm not talking to your spouse, by the way. I'm talking to you. All right. Number 2. Good listeners dispense advice sparingly. We often say this about guys listening to their wives. And something that we've been trained, so if it's not true, y'all need to tell us this, but I think it's probably pretty true everywhere, that when your wife comes to you with the problem and so forth, what does she want? No, what does she not want? A solution. Tuck it away, leave that for your guy friends, okay?
Shut up and listen.
Listen to them, right? But with friendships, don't you understand in your good, close friendships that a lot of times that's not what you're, especially I guess that's true for ladies, but even in some other situations, sometimes, even if we say, I need your advice about something, you know what you are really doing? And it's really healthy. You've not said anything outside of your own head. And now you're talking, and what you need is somebody to bounce it all out of, and you're not asking somebody else to solve it for you. Once you've just kind of been out with it, you kind of know what you need to do, right? And good listeners are very careful, maybe after persistent asking for the advice, to then say, well, you might consider this, and see where it goes there. But realize that the listening is the important part there. Number 3, good listeners never betray a confidence. One of the signs that your friendship is deepening is when your friend trusts you with secrets. Nothing creates distance and abandonment of friendship quicker than to discover that you revealed a private matter. And we're not just talking about your general friendships, we're talking about in marriage. Be careful about who you talk to about issues with your spouse. Good listeners complete the loop. Silence is considered negative feedback. It tells you that something's wrong, but it doesn't tell you what's wrong. There are 3 elementary steps to this. So person A makes a statement. Person B acknowledges the statement. And person A confirms the acknowledgement. Let me say it again. Person A makes a statement. Person B acknowledges it. Person A confirms the acknowledgement. Here's how that would look. Wife says, I saw Brother Smith today. Husband says, how is he? Wife says, his cancer has returned. Husband says, oh no, what kind of cancer was that? So you see, that's to listen attentively to your spouse is to pay the highest compliment. It's to say, I value what you're thinking. Number 5, good listeners show gratitude when someone confides. You ever thought about it that way? When in any friendship, when somebody comes to you and confides in you, they're making themselves very vulnerable. And they are saying to you, I know that I'm telling you something that you could hurt me with. But I think enough about you that I'm going to say it anyway. You ever thought about thanking somebody for entrusting that with you? And of course, valuing that it does not need to go anywhere, that you're going to keep that. But the fact that they trust you enough, that they would put that into your hands. Now, guys, when we think about our marriage, you ever thought about it in that way? Don't you love to share with your spouse a weakness, a fear, a concern, a problem, a sin struggle? Think about what a compliment you're paying to them. And if you're the one hearing that, think about the grace with which you should receive it and handle it. All right, the other side of the conversation is important. The words that we use should show respect, so use appropriate words. Proverbs 25 and verse 11. Like apples of gold and settings of silver is a word spoken in right circumstances. So what would we call appropriate words in communicating with our spouse? Kind words, gracious or merciful words, reassuring words. Number 2, use reproving words. Proverbs 25 and verse 12. Like an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold is a wise reprover to a listening ear. That's some of the hardest communication to do well, isn't it? To say to your spouse, you're not really doing this thing the way that it needs to be done. That's the unvarnished version, but I mean, that's what you're saying to them. Can we remember how God tells preachers to even deal with the folks who are in error? You remember 2 Timothy 2:25? Folks who are living in sin, who are on the road to destruction. Just look at 2 Timothy 2:24 through 26 sometimes. The servant of the Lord must not strive, but be patient toward all, gentle. So if that's how we handle somebody who's in a wrong relationship with God, how should we handle our spouse when we're trying to correct them? Number 3, use refreshing words. Proverbs 25 and verse 13. Like the cold of snow at a time of harvest is a faithful messenger to those who send him, for he refreshes the soul of his masters. Complimentary words, words that offer help or service, words that bear good news. And then number 4, use kind words. Proverbs 16:24. Do any of you guys like, I don't know what it's called these days. I don't know how we fell into this, but we like 40s music. So for those of you who are younger, we were not alive when that music came out. That was a long time. Our parents were just little babies when that came out. But we like 40s music, like, Frank and Bing, and if you know what I'm talking about. We really like the Mills Brothers. And there was a song that they had early on that we liked. You ever heard the song, You Always Hurt the One You Love? I mean, just go to Spotify. It's really catchy song, good harmony and all that. Well, the point of that song is, and I think it goes, you always hurt the ones you love, the ones you shouldn't hurt at all. I can't remember the rest of it right now. I would if I wasn't up here. But the point is, we know how to talk to strangers. We know how to talk to clients. We know how to talk to coworkers. We know how to talk to folks at church. But sometimes we don't use that same kindness in the relationship that matters the most. We need to use kind words in marriage. Let me just hit these real quick. This is the longest 5 minutes in history between bells. Or maybe did it ring? And I just thought it was ringing in my ear. Okay. Be likable. Second. And I'm going to be likable, and I'm going to stop right at the bell. All right. Well, okay, fine. Just real quick. Okay. Wouldn't you say that there's some people that you love that you don't like? You better. Matthew 5:44 through 46. I got too much to say on this. So what I'll do is I'll figure out what I'm gonna do with that. But class is over. Well, as they say, leave them wanting more. Leave them with empty blanks on their paper. All right. Be fun. Be fun. It's the last one. How do you keep somebody in suspense?
I'll tell you later.
Yeah.